Hi, my name is Jorge Escalma, and in here I'm presenting my database done in Microsoft Access as my product for my internal assessment 2015 for the International Baccalaureate program. This database product was done in Microsoft Access 2015. This is a product delivered to a specific client named Silvia Galvez. Silvia wanted me to program her a digitalized way of having her assets, properties, stored in a specific program. So I selected Microsoft Access. Microsoft Access allowed me to represent data in specific tables by using different objects such as tables, query designs, forms, labels, and many other objects that has given me the ability of representing data in an access and efficient way. Silvia asked me if I could do a database of her assets. Assets that could be considered as properties that could contain different categories, such as what type of asset is it, what is the size, what is the location, who is the owner, what is the value, and what is the rent. Also, another type of characteristics as is it furnished or not. My client asked me if I could do for her, as I said, a database, but not only just a table of database, also program different type of objects that can be done in Microsoft Access, such as forms, which we can be seen here, that are very helpful for the client to see data represented in different categorizations, such as the asset, the owner, location, size, and type. Also creating report forms as labels. These labels are very easy for the client because it allows her to check a specific data categorization and print it in a very easyable form. Also, by using query designs that select specific aspects of the data and show it in specific categories. Query designs help me to amplify and categorize data in a much particular way. All these objects I programmed and I created were asked by the client Silvia Galvez in order to develop the product. First, she asked me to program the general assets data table. Then she asked me about specific consoles that, for example, in here that shows only the assets and the owner and the type. Also, this one shows the assets, the owner, and the type, but giving specific criterions such as what type of it. Is this a house? Is it an apartment? Or any different thing? So here I programmed the original table that contains the asset. What is the type? What is the name of the asset? For example, these are properties that are located inside Mexico. The owner, because her husband is participating as advisor client too, which is Jorge Escalona. The specific location, the size, the type, the rent, and the value, and if it's furnished or not. These categories I programmed were set as data entries and have helped me a lot to represent data as the client wants it. This table was done as the first step in order to create database. Then Silvia asked me if I could do some specific query designs and something specific more than just the table itself. So I programmed query designs. To program query design, it was really easy. First, I had to create query design, and then in this section of download, I did subdirections linking every category of the table and put it up down here in this section. This section allows me to represent it in the query design form, and for example, I'm just selecting here the owners and the asset, and the location next to it, and the size. So just the owner's location and the size will be showing the query design. This, of course, helps the client to have a more specific and particular way of showing her data. This was asked by the client. These were different query designs I did for her, but the main important two is the ones that show the assets and the owner type, which is this one. The owner, the location, and size are specifically done in query designs. Also, what I did in query designs, were more specifically, was creating a query design, but with more specific categorization. After putting the type of category she wanted to, I add criterions. With quotes, you could add what type of asset is it, just the assets that show the word Pico. So for example, execute, there is no asset just with the word Pico. This is an example of how data categorization can be very specifically by using query designs. The second step for creating the database, I program a assets table or assets table form, which show data in a more specific way. And here we have the parameters, that is the asset, this is the name of the asset, the owner, which is the client's husband, the location, which is at Mexico City, and the delegation it is set on, the size, 600 meters squares, the type, what type is it a house or apartment, and the rent in Mexican currency, which is paid monthly, and the value, of course, in Mexican currency if it's furnished. With this, you can see with the arrows to see all the number of IDs and number of assets. And here, this helps to have a nicer interface for the client to go through the assets tables, but in a nicer way. Finally, the third step she asked me to, I program for her reports in label form, which are seen here. To program these reports, it was really easy. She wanted me to show in a sheet page in different sizes the categories she wanted me to use. So, for example, she asked me to use a specific type of letter, which types in Roman. Also, the size of the letter, which she instructed me to be 16. After doing this, I showed the categories in order. So, for example, she asked me to add owner. I did owner, then size, then rent. So, for example, categories I select first would be shown at the beginning. This was used by creating location. Finally, we add location and the value in Mexican pesos. This, as it shows, in a bigger way and with the type of leverage you want. So this is creating reports in label forms are really easy in Microsoft Access, as I program for her in a specific way of showing her the data in a specific letter format and in a blank page, which is really easy for her because she can print it instantly and allows her to have her object of report form in a very accessible format. So in overall, the objects I programmed was the assets tables. That was the beginning, the basic piece in order to program all the objects. Then I did query designs specific for her, as she instructed me, showing a particular categorization. Then I did the assets tables in a nicer way and a nicer interface, showing it by representation of forms. With forms, she could see the assets by category in a much nicer way. At the end, I add report forms in label, which we consider like this ones. This allows her to see her assets data categorization, assets information in a blank sheet page, where it helps her to print this or to manage this information in a more accessible, fancy way. The client instructed me to program these objects, but here in this Microsoft Access database format, I could create more objects and more forms to have it in a very nice interface way. For example, this is the function to evidence that the product works itself, and it is a database format. However, the extensibility of this product was, as I showed before, created and inserting new fields. For example, if we desire to insert new fields, we just gotta program what type of text. If it's gotta be a number, if it's gotta be a currency, if it's gotta be a date and time, yes or no questions. Basically, creating first data entry forms. In the first object, there was tables. The second, the extensibility shows the query designs. In the query designs, I program to have both consoles organized in here by columns. After adding the columns, you put the criterions in quotes. Program to offer a specific and particular categorization of the data assets table. After that, I did the form assets, which in the form assets you could add also. I programmed to have these different categories shown in the form she wanted it. This basically I programmed it because she wanted to have the categories of the database, but in a much nicer ways, in a much cleaner way. To have it not in columns and rows, to have it more in a sheet with different categories. This was done creating the table and then creating a specific form in a form way. Finally, the reports, which includes labels, ask me to create different criteria of programming by adding the particular category she asked me to. In here, she wanted the location, the type, and the size. I programmed it to have it ready in a blank sheet paper, and also this is very easy because she could print it and consult it in different models. So for example, to create I program it by selecting the database format, then creating labelings, and with labelings I program to select each specifies what type of also unit of measurement, also if she wanted loose paper or to be continuous, also the type of size, the type of letter, the type of width she wanted, and the color of the text. This has allowed Sylvia, my client, to have an overall representation of a database in a digitalized format. This database has been very useful because it has helped the client to achieve and have an organized way of organizing her properties and assets data in a digitalized ways. Also, of course, the client counts with the Microsoft Access application. So overall, my database created in Microsoft Access by program in each different category, done by Jorge Escalona. Thank you.